Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Barnyard Buddies and I'm going to be sipping on some coffee. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, burnt umber, which I will call brown, deep yellow, Mars black, and burnt sienna, which I tend to call rust. So those are the colors I'll be using. You can switch them up if you'd like to. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'll use for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, I have a number 12 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 1 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up too if you'd like. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and brushes, and even the piece of chalk comes in it. So that's down there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting our sky. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are blue and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first make myself a light blue color. That'll be a nice sky tone on a bright sunny day. And I'm going to start with that color up at the top, and then I'm going to get it lighter and lighter as it goes down towards the bottom of my canvas, because that's the way I see a sky. A little bit darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I've got my large bristle brush. I'm going to be adding white paint, a good amount of white paint, to a little bit of blue paint. So the white will, or the blue will be very powerful. And I want this to be a nice light shade of blue, so I want to make sure that I have a good amount of white in there. You can make yours as light or as dark as you want. It can be much darker and bolder than this, but I'm just going to go for a nice soft blue as my top color of my sky. And once you've got the blue in the shade that you want, what you'll do is you're just going to start at the top of the canvas. So this is pretty good to me, and it doesn't even have to be a perfect blend. Start at the top of the canvas. I'm going to be using a left to right type of a brush stroke. You could certainly use circles or X's or whatever kind of works for you. I'm just going for a nice solid coverage on my sky. I will be in a minute utilizing a little bit more white on my brush, so that way I can get my sky to go a little bit lighter and lighter as it comes down my canvas. But right now I'm just kind of working with that original light blue that we had made. So I'm about almost, I would say about 1/3 of the way down my canvas. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up that light blue plus white on my brush, about equal parts. And what this is going to do, because I did not wash my brush, what this is going to do is it's going to help me to create a gradual gradient going down the canvas. So I brought it right to here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to back it up into the previous section. So that'll get those two colors to blend in together. And then as I come down the rest of the sky, what I'll be doing is I'm going to be picking up white paint on my dirty brush. And what'll happen is my sky will naturally get lighter and lighter as it comes down towards the bottom. You could even go all the way white as you go down towards the bottom, or you can just leave it as a nice soft blue as it's making its way down towards the bottom. That's going to be a visual preference on your part. We're going to have a lot of other distractions and elements within the canvas for the viewer to be looking at, so this is really just providing us with a nice believable background that'll make these animals look and feel like they are outdoors. So I'm just going to bring this all the way down to the bottom. We are going to be using our piece of chalk for the next step, so I just added a touch more blue, just so, I guess I just didn't want mine to go all the way away. I just added a touch of blue onto my brush, that light blue, just so I could keep this a little bit on the softer blue side and not go all the way white, I guess, for me. Visually, I'm thinking that's where I wanted it to be, but you could certainly make yours lighter or darker than mine, and it doesn't have to be a perfect blend, because again, we've got lots of stuff that's going to be going on top of this. So when you get this all nice and done, what we're going to be doing, we'll be utilizing that piece of chalk for the next step. So you can just finish up your sky, put your big brush away, take out your piece of chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our fence. I know I said I was going to be using my chalk, but I decided I don't need my chalk on this one. I'm just going to go with my big brush and paint it in. So I do recommend that before you start the step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that moment where you get to take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. I dropped my paper towel for a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a medium tan type of a color to use as a base coat for the rails on the fence, and then we'll go from there with adding the other information to it. So I'm going to start with brown, a good amount of brown, and I'm going to put a little bit of white into it. I don't need a lot of white. Let me just turn this so we can all see it. I don't need a lot of white, just a little bit of white, so the opacity of my brown is better. If you just use the brown coming right out of the tube, it might be pretty light or see-through on you, so I'm going to be adding just a little bit of white into it so it's not as see-through. So once I've got this tan color, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some markers on the sides of my canvas. I'm going to have 4 rails to my fence. I'm going to have a real narrow one at the top and narrow at the bottom, and then I'll have 2 bigger ones in the middle. So the top one, I'm going to come down maybe about 1.5 inches on the left and about 1.5 inches on the right, and I'm going to color that in. I'm just going for a solid type of coat. I don't even need that bottom to be super straight. This is intended to be like old wood, you know, and a nice country farm, so it does not need to be perfect in the straightness of it. So I'm going to do the one down at the bottom next, so then we can kind of work our way into the middle ones. So I'm going to come up maybe about 2 inches on the left and about 2 inches on the right, and same thing, just color them in. I, again, don't need that line to be straight. It's going to actually be more believable and realistic if it's got a little bit of wiggle in it or a little bit of shape to it. So go ahead and kind of give it an uneven type of a line. And I'm just coloring this in with a thin coat of this brown, so that way it doesn't take too long to dry, and then I just kind of paint out the thick spots. So then the next ones, on the top, I need enough room for my cow's head to kind of fit through. So I'm going to go maybe about 4 inches down. If this is about the center of my canvas, top to bottom, I'm almost about halfway between that and here. So somewhere around here is where I'm going to put that. Then you can use your brush as a measuring tool to figure out where that is, and come over on the right hand side and put another one in place. Then I'm going to come down, again, if this is about halfway up or down my canvas, I'm about 1 inch above that. And I can do the same thing over on the right hand side. And then this becomes the top and the bottom of that rail. So I'm just going to connect these two. Again, I've got seemingly enough room in between here and here for my cow's head to pop through, but maybe you're looking to do a different kind of animal popping through. So you may not need as much room as I do, or you might need more room than I have. And then I'm just going to bring this all the way down to the bottom. And again, not terribly concerned if that bottom run or the bottom area is a perfect line. So just bringing this down to the bottom, and then I just go back and forth, making sure that I have a nice thin coat along the whole thing, something like that. And then I just need one more in through here. So this one, the bottom is going to be enough space from just my pig's nose to kind of pop through. So I don't need much space there. And then this one, I also don't need a ton of space because it's a goat's head from the side. So if this is about 3.5 to 4 inches, this can be a little bit more shallow. So you can kind of cut this section in 3. So if I just go like this and like this, these are kind of equal sections, and then you can do the same thing here and here, and then this becomes the next rail to your fence. So again, just kind of painting it in with this tan type of a color. I'm just using a flat color right now, so that way we can add our little details on top of it. And then just bringing this all the way to the end and all the way down to the bottom. And again, if yours is not straight, that's totally fine. We really don't need it to be straight. This is just giving us those old kind of wood fence slats that are very fun in the barn atmosphere. So once I've got this done, what I'm going to do is I am going to be adding just little details to the pieces of wood that give them a little bit more of a natural type of look to them. So I want to give these 3 a little bit of a highlight on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some of my tan color plus white on my brush, and I want my bristles to kind of be in control, so I can kind of wipe them off on the side of my palette, which will make my bristles kind of come together like this. And then I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a highlight on the top area of here, maybe a little bit more white so we can see it, since this is kind of a wet surface that I'm working on. So I'm really just looking for this top little line to look like it is a highlighted area of my fence. You might opt to use your medium brush for this, but I'm just going to go ahead and use my larger brush, and I'm going to do the same thing for these bottom 2 rails as well. So something like that, and then one more on the bottom in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush so I can add the little grain texture to the wood. So I'm just washing and drying my brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a teeny bit of black paint. So same thing that I did with the brown and white, how I kind of pushed it on the side of my palette. This way I can bring my bristles together, and I'm going to give myself these long kind of streaky type of strokes throughout it, and I can do that with all of them. I'm going to just put the black on first, and then I'll come back through with a little bit of highlights to give the wood a little bit more. You can even do like a little circular type of motion, and that's going to allow it to look like maybe there's a knot or something within the wood. And you don't need to do much, really just kind of giving this the essence of some wood grain to it. And then, so I don't have too much black on my brush, I'm actually going to wash and dry my brush so I can get some of that black off of there. And then I'm just going to kind of fill in the gaps with a little bit of my, you can use your regular brown and or your tan and or your white. So this is where you get to just add a little bit more of any kind of tones to that wood that you want. If you want there to be little light streaks, you can pick up a little bit of white. If you want there to be dark streaks, you can pick up a little bit of your tan or your brown. So whatever you want your wood to look like, maybe you want your wood to be really new looking and it's got that real rich tones to it. Maybe you want it to be old and weathered and have a little bit of grayness to it. So you can add a little bit of the white and black. So wherever you're feeling that tonal value within your wood is totally fine. Just light streaks going left to right. Again, maybe you have that little swirl of of wood grain happening, indicating that there's a little bit of a knot or of sorts, and just kind of play with this until you have as much texture on it as you want. And then once you do, we are going to be utilizing our chalk for the next step. I'm sure of it this time. So you can just put the large brush away, take out your piece of chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our 3 animal heads. I'm going to be using my chalk. I do recommend that you make sure that your canvas is dry. Again, it's much easier to draw on dry paint than it is on wet paint. So what we're going to do is we're just going to be doing some basic outlines here. So that way we'll have a place to start for painting the base coats on these animals. So I'm going to give you some markers and we'll connect the markers, and we're not going for any fine little tiny details, just a nice basic shape on the outside of the animal so we can paint it in. So we're going to start with our cow first. So I'm going to have my cow just kind of peeking out from this left-hand side with his nose kind of a little bit overhanging this railing in through here. So my first place that I'm going to make a marker is if you go from your top side of your railing or your post in through here, if this is the center of that area, you want to come over to the left maybe about an inch and make yourself a little bit of a marker in through there. So something right about in through there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come directly below that marker about halfway between this rail and this rail, so somewhere in through here, and make myself another little marker. So that's going to be the bottom of the face, and this is going to be the top where it kind of comes out. So I want this to kind of come down in through here and then bump out for the front part of the nose. So I'm not going to do super straight lines. I'm going to have them with a little bit of bend in them so it looks nice and natural. So I'm going to start up here. I'm going to bring this down in a little bit of a curve in through here, and then when I kind of just cross over this rail a little bit, that's where I'm going to start to curve it out a little bit, and then I'm going to kind of come almost in a downward straight motion and then just kind of curve it back in through here. So that's going to give me the right hand side of the face. The bottom of the face leading off the canvas is going to wind up right in through here. So wherever this rail meets the sky, something in through there. And I'm going to connect here to here. This is going to be the bottom part of the mouth and just the side of the face. So I'm going to come over to the left a little bit and then curve it back up. And again, I don't want a super straight line, so you can certainly just give it a little bit of a curve will totally work in through there. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have my cow with a big white stripe on its on the center of its head. So I'm going to kind of section off where I want that to be. So I'm going to go to the left of here, just about, I would say, 1/2 inch or so, and just give myself a fun little sliver of a section in through there. And then I'm going to go about halfway between here and the end of my canvas over here, make myself another marker. That's going to be the marking on the front of the head. So something like this. And again, I'm just going to give myself like this wavy type of line until I get to about here. I'm going to put the start of the nostril in place. So right about here, I'm going to give myself this curve like this. So this way when I go to, and I'll cut it off right about here. This way when I go to paint my base coats, I can have like black over here and gray over here. That's all I'm going to do for my basic shape for my cow. I'm going to move right on to my goat in through here. So my goat head is just kind of peeking out along the side of this fence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give myself a generic kind of outline, but I want it to be kind of right around where the nose of my cow is. So if I come straight down from the nose of my cow, I'm right about there. That's pretty much where I've got the start of my goat's face going. And then I'm going to just kind of connect it to this top piece up in through here, right about here. So it's going to kind of sneak out from underneath the railing, and I need to give it the side of its face and then a little bit for its nose. So I'm going to come down like this, over, and just give myself a little bit of a bump right in through there. That's going to be where we put that little nose part. And then I need to connect here to this back area right off here where the goat is kind of coming right out from the side of the canvas. So he's going to have like a jaw that's going to go into its mouth part. So I'm going to come down about halfway down this rail and then come back up like this and then just kind of meet this in through here. We'll have some hair and stuff coming down here, his little beard, but we'll put that on in a carefree way with our paintbrush later. So my next one is my pig, and really all I need to do is kind of put a snout on. I'm going to put my snout somewhere in through here. I'm going to actually switch to my pencil so you guys can see it better on camera. So I just kind of put a curved type of a half of a circle in through here, and then a little bit to the left of the top of here, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a line like that, and then just a curve up in through here leading off and behind that fence. And that's all I'm going to be doing for my outline. I'm going to be using my medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your chalk away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat for all three animals. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, and white. And how I'm going to start this is I'm going to start with black paint on my brush. I'm going to do my black areas on my cow. So I'm not really doing anything special here, just making sure I bring it all the way up to that fence in through here. I don't need any special brush stroke when it comes to the black paint because it will cover really nice. So you just want to put it on there and just kind of move it around until you get the whole section covered in. When it comes to the edges where it's going to meet the edge of the head, I will do a little bit of a softer kind of brush stroke. So maybe I have a couple of little light pieces of its fur just kind of coming out, but I don't need to do anything really fancy. If you don't get that soft edge, it's okay, because these are kind of, you know, just fun animals that we're doing. And same thing when it meets the white area, which will be this center area. So if you just kind of give it a little bit of a bumpy kind of look to it, that's going to make it look more natural when we go to get it to blend in with the fur that is going to be on that head area. And this is going to be our nostril in through here, so this doesn't really need anything too special. And then again, the area where it's going to meet the other colors of the fur, like in through here, you can just kind of give it a little soft edge like that. And then I just have one little sliver of black paint over here on the right hand side. So this again is going to be kind of meeting a patch of lighter fur, so something like that. We're going to be putting more detail on this right side because this is where the eye is going to go in a little bit, but right now I'm just going to kind of color it in so I have that black patch of the face on that side, so something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a gray color for the rest of the pieces of the animals. So I'm going to be using my dirty brush, and I'm going to add some, I'm going to put black into white, and I'm also going to use a little bit of brown. So what I'm really going for is kind of like a medium gray tone here that has a little bit of warmth to it, which is why I'm sticking a little bit of brown into it. Sometimes when you go just black and white, it can be a little bit cool of a gray, so I like to sometimes add some warmth into it. So something like this is where I'm going for. This will also turn a little bit darker as it dries, so you can just kind of mentally plan for that. So once I've got my gray, I'm going to be coloring in all the rest of the animal areas that we have separated out. So this gray will act as a great base for the white fur that we're going to put on the cow, as well as the skin color that we'll be putting on its muzzle nose area. This is going to be its nose area, so I'm kind of giving myself a little bit more of a clean line around the edge of that, and the nostril as well. And if your paint isn't fully mixed in, like I can see mine is not a solid color, that's okay. Just kind of rub it around It doesn't even need to be a solid color. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. I am going to have, this is going to be like where the little mouth is. So I like to give my edges softness, but if you have clean edges around this right hand side, that's going to be totally fine. And then where this area meets this area, I can kind of cross those two over each other a little bit because that's just a color marking of sorts. And same thing when it comes to the rest of the areas that are meeting the black. You can certainly just kind of let them touch each other a little bit. They can even cross over one another because this is where the fur is going to be talking to one another. So you're going to have some light fur and some dark fur talking to one another. So if you can start the process of them overlapping and merging with one another now, that's going to make the process a little bit more believable and easier when you go through the full process of it. So I'm bringing this right up to the wood in through here and then just making it really ruffled around the edges where it's meeting this other black section, and then kind of smoothed out where it's meeting that face. And then I'm just going to make sure that this area is nice and colored in, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint the other two animals with this same gray. So I don't need to do anything fancy to this one. I can see that I still had some black left within my bristles of my brush, which is where I'm getting some light streaks and dark streaks, which is totally fine because that's going to help with the dimensional element of your fur. But if you want to, you can certainly add a little bit of lightness to it if that happens to you as well. And then I'm just bringing this all the way to the end. The only thing that I'm going to do in addition on this little guy here is I will be adding a little bit of the start to the beard that he's going to have. So I'm just getting this main coat on here, bringing it all the way to the edges. I know that the fur is going to be pretty smooth at the top side of the head, which is why I'm giving it a little bit more of a smoother line. And here's in the face area in through here, it might be a little bit smoother, but once I get down to this bottom part of the chin, I know that it's going to be really ruffled because it's going to have that little beard happening. So I'm just going to bring my gray right to the edge for the moment, and then what I'm going to do with a little bit of paint on my brush is I'm going to start pulling down the makings of the beard on my little goat. So I'm not using a lot of paint. I'm just kind of bringing it down just about to the edge of here. You could overhang it a little bit if you wanted to. That's going to be totally up to you, but that's just going to start my beard making process with very little bit of paint. Yeah, I like it going over that a little bit with my beard making process. So just a little bit of gray there. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my pig with the same gray because, again, this is going to give me a nice base coat to everything that I want to do for this pig. The only thing that I'm going to do for visual purposes is leave myself a little bit of a gap between the grays from the snout to the bridge of the snout. So that way I don't lose the information that I drew in there for where the snout kind of meets the rest of the face. So I'll just leave myself a little sliver of unpainted canvas in between that snout and the face itself, again, just so I don't lose that information. And then the rest of the pig head just gets a coat of gray. You don't need to do any special direction. Just make sure that you cover in the whole area, and even on the face where it's meeting the sky, that doesn't need to be anything fancy either, because he's going to get a lot of kind of extra little fluffy fur attention in a future step. And then I'm just going to bring this all the way down to this fence rail. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your base coat for your animals, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be doing the facial features on our cow. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, white, and rust or burnt sienna. So how I'm going to do this is I'm first going to give myself the rest of the shape of this right owl. That doesn't make any sense. This right eye. Little tongue twister there. I'm going to put some black paint on my brush. What I'm going to, in essence, do is give myself the eye socket where the eye sits, and then we'll put a little bump for the eye itself. So I'm going to just kind of give myself a little area that pops out like this. This is going to be the eye socket. I'm going to give myself a little crescent type of shape, which is going to be the eyeball itself. And then I'll have a little bit of a bump above it, which will be the top part of the eye socket. So something like that will work just fine for me, and you can certainly manipulate yours as much as you want. We'll be disguising it with eyelashes and stuff too if it didn't go perfect for you. Then what I'm going to do while that's drying is I'm going to come over to the left hand side and put my left eye in place. So what I'm going to do without washing my brush, I'm going to pick up some of my gray color that we created for here. I've got to have this eye pretty lined up with this one. It doesn't have to be too much higher or lower. It could be a little bit, but not a whole heck of a lot. So if you just kind of travel to the left from this one, something like that. And I'm thinking mine might be a little tipped, but not a whole lot. So maybe a little to the left, somewhere about halfway. You know, if this was the center of the head, somewhere about halfway between there and the end of my canvas, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a crescent for the inside part of the eye. This is with my gray color, so something like that will work out for me to create the little pretty part on the inside of the eye. And because this is all black fur around here, we're in essence kind of creating the illusion of the eye with the varying colors around it. So with this gray paint on my brush, I'm going to pick up a little bit of black as well. I'm going to create the eye socket, which we created over here with the exterior bump. I'm going to create the eye socket above it with just a lighter color of paint. So I've got black plus my gray on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of rub it up out in a smaller kind of direction or shape going out or above that eye. So something like this is going to help me to create the illusion that there's an eye socket up there. I can also put a little bit of lightness down underneath here. So I'm using gray plus a little bit of black on my brush, and you can continue to adjust the intensity of it. So if you're going about it and you're like, oh, I don't have enough black or I have too much gray, you can always just keep adjusting it as need be. I'm just looking for something nice and subtle underneath this eye in order to tell the viewer that this is, you know, some fur around there, and it's kind of leading into the rest of the face. And then if you need to clean up around that little part, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to pick up white paint, give myself a couple of little sparkles in the eye. So a little sparkle there and a little sparkle there. And now I'm going to add some eyelashes. So I'm going to be using my gray paint to start. And if this is the front part of my eye, I can utilize this top area in through here as information where my eyelashes will be coming out. So I just have the gray paint on my brush. You can also utilize a little bit of white or water on your brush to get these little kind of singular or skinnier type of eyelashes. I'm going to put some black on my brush right now too, in order to, I see that I need to cover some of that blue sky behind there, so I just added a bit of black on my brush, and this can also help to give me some dimensional elements throughout these eyelashes. But I'm getting the eyelashes to go just a little bit over that over the eye a little bit, and I just kind of keep building them. I will add a little bit more of a highlight twinkle into that eye in a minute, but this just kind of gets me started, and you can certainly keep building them as much as you want, but they are meant to protect the eye, so that's why they're going kind of in front of the eye like this. I'm wiping my brush off, picking up a little bit more white paint in order to give me this nice bright kind of twinkle of sorts in the whites of the eye, something like that. And of course you can manipulate that all you want. I think I want a little bit more lightness up in through this eyebrow or eye socket area, so something like that. So again, just kind of keep tweaking it until you feel like you've got that under control. To accomplish the other eye, really all I need is a couple of twinkles and some eyelashes, maybe a little bit of lightness in the eye socket part. So I'm adding a touch of that gray to my brush, giving myself a little highlight on the eye socket part. So not much, just, you know, a little bit with that gray. And if you need to pick up a little bit of black to get it to blend in a little bit, so be it. And then a little bit maybe underneath here, just to give that little curvature to it. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that gray in order to give myself maybe a little bit of a highlight within the eye itself. Then a touch of white on my brush is going to give me some little twinkles. So a little twinkle twinkle and maybe a little bit down in that gray part. And now I just need eyelashes. So wiping my brush off, picking up some black paint to start this one. Whereas the other one I started with some gray. This one I'm going to start with some black paint, and then I'll just bring them out in this direction. And you can have really long eyelashes. You can really get them to go whatever way you want. Once you got some black ones on there, you can add some gray ones. That's going to give you the dimension. That'll give you the dimension in front of the eye. And you can just kind of keep playing with that as much as you want to. Once you've got that done, we'll move right on to the nose. So the nose is going to be I'm making mine like a pinky skin color. So I'm going to be using my burnt sienna plus white. And what this is going to create is a really nice natural skin tone. So you don't need to do a whole heck of a lot to it, just adding the white into it. It'll also get a little bit more neutralized when you put it on top of the gray. And then you just got to kind of pick a section where you want this to happen. So where I have this curved area in through here, I'm going to come right about in where that curves, and I'm going to just give myself a loose kind of line going across. You don't want it to be too straight. You want it to have a little bit of curve to it so it looks nice and natural. Maybe a little bit of this extra pink on this nostril, the edge of the nostril going in through here. I can bring this down into the mouth area, and then I'm going to just kind of start rubbing this in. I'll probably have a little bit of a darkness area inside the center of this area of the face, but the trick here is to just not make it a solid color. So wherever you feel like you can get away with just kind of rubbing your brush and blending it into the gray underneath, that's what's going to make it look nice and natural. So I've got the pinky type of tone. I'm just kind of rubbing it in so it looks like it's naturally blending with that gray. I'm going to add a bit of black onto my brush to give myself where I want the mouth to go. When I do this mouth, I'm just giving it a real light sketcherly type of paint stroke. I want it to look like it's, you know, maybe got a little bit of fur or something around it that is, or skin that is just kind of naturally blending into it, but I don't need it to do much. I think I'm going to put a little bit of this black up in through here just to kind of separate this nostril a little bit from the face. And again, it doesn't have to be anything super duper perfect. This is just, you know, a nice rendition of a cute little cow. So we're just kind of giving it a little bit of information. I'm just opening that a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do with this dirty brush, I've got a little bit of black paint on my brush, not much. I'm going to just kind of give myself a little bit of a darker spot right in through here. And then I can do the same thing with lightening up with a little bit of white, the part that pops out the most. So I just washed my brush. I'm going to put a tiny bit of white paint on my brush, and this is going to give me this highlighted area or a contour type of highlight that is going to pop that nose out a little bit more as it's closest to the viewer. And you might find that you want to do a couple of layers in order to get this to translate the way that you want to. But once you've got this done, we are going to be utilizing this same brush, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting the facial features on our goat. So I'm going to use my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, white, brown, rust, and yellow. So all my colors except for blue are gonna go in this little guy's face. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first start by putting the eye in place. I'm gonna use black paint to do so. So I have my small brush and black paint. So these eyes are kind of in the shape of almonds. And because he's gonna be looking from the side, he's just got his head kind of poking out here, I'm gonna have it in through here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create this almond type of shape, something like this. So it kind of tips down a little bit on that back right hand corner. And I'm just gonna paint it with black paint to start, something like this. A nice thin coat. We don't need it to take too long to dry. So just a nice thin coat of black paint will help that process. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out this little corner with very little bit of paint on my brush. So I'm going to actually wipe my brush off on my paper towel, and then I'm just going to kind of rub or pull this little corner out. So this is going to start the process of the little dip in the corner of his eye, something like that. That works for me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And I'm going to put the nose on with burnt sienna or rust. So my nose is going to be in this vicinity in through here. So wherever this little bump happens, I'm going to be giving myself this cute little, I don't know the name of this shape. It's like an oval type of shape that comes down on the side and then it kind of comes back up towards this like front part of the nose. So I don't know, it kind of looks like a sideways wide teardrop of sorts, something like this. And I'm just going to color it in with my burnt sienna kind of color like this. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to kind of put my mouth in place with this burnt sienna color. From this little tip in through here, I'm going to bring this in a little curved line, similar to the curved line I have right in through here. And then this is now going to be the mouth that we're going to make. So we're going to bring, I brought a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right. And this is just kind of setting the stage for where we want that mouth to go. The mouth kind of naturally curves in, if you were to take this jaw and just kind of come up and curve it. That's what I was finding was the natural kind of trajectory of it. So you don't want that mouth to go much past that jaw in through there. And then what I'm going to do with that burnt sienna is I'm going to go and rub it around the eye. So I have the burnt sienna, and what I'm going to do is I'm just taking it and rubbing it in around that eye. And this is going to give us a nice natural kind of contour coloring around the eye, so it makes it have some good shape as we go to paint in the details of the fur and stuff in a little bit. So just taking that burnt sienna and just kind of letting it kind of dissipate into the gray area. So nothing much. This is just going to kind of give us that information. Now what I'm going to do without washing my brush is I'm picking up a little bit of black and brown on my brush. I'm going to give myself a nostril on this side. So I'm going to take that black and brown and I'm bringing it in this curved type of way towards the center of the nose, and then I just kind of rub it out so it almost disappears in that rust. So it looks like it's the darkest towards the top side of it, towards the center of the nose, and then as it's coming out the nostril, it blends into this burnt sienna. And if you have to, you can just pick up a little bit more of that burnt sienna just to get it to blend in, but that'll give it a nice natural look to it. Then I'm gonna use that same black and brown and do a little bit deeper of little marks within the mouth in through here. So I'm really just kind of rubbing my brush a little bit, so I have a couple of deep dark kind of little shadowy type of areas in through there. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put a highlight on top of this nose. So I'm going to be using the skin color that I did for my cow. So that light pinkish color, I'm using that as a little bit of a highlight on top of this nose in through here. And they have like kind of these little wrinkly divots, so I'm just going to kind of pull this down almost in a little diamond type of a shape, and then just get it to blend in with the other areas. You can also pull in a touch of white paint too. I just picked up a little bit of white just to give that extra little bit of highlight up and through there. And if you felt that you needed to do anything more, you certainly could, but this will get you a good start to it. And then we're going to finish the eye. So what I'm going to do for the eye is I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to have my eye have a nice yellow kind of color to it. So I've got yellow plus a little bit of white paint on my brush. Not much white, but a little bit that'll give me some good opacity. And I'm going to give a curved line. Goats have a unusual pupil to their eye. It's more of a horizontal pupil than it is a circular or a vertical. So I'm going to be utilizing this color to provide me with the outline of my strange horizontal pupil. So I've got that's yellow with a little bit of white on my brush, providing me with this colored part to the eye. So while that's setting, I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And I'm going to put a touch of gray on my brush and give myself a little bit of a skin kind of piece in through here. Not much, just a teeny tiny little bit. And then I'm going to put a little bit of white paint on my brush to give myself a little bit of a twinkle in the eye. So somewhere in through here, I'll just kind of pull in a couple of little twinkles for that eye. Wash and dry my brush. And now I'm going to put on some eyelashes. So my eyelashes, again, kind of like the cowl, you're going to want them to go in front of the eye. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of my gray paint, and I'm just going to do little short ones that are going to be kind of curving towards that eye a little bit, and not much at all, just this little illusion of them coming right in front of the eye. And you can do little short ones, you can do longer ones, but less is more when it comes to doing one of this type of detail, just because if you overdo it, it might look a little bit less natural. And if you needed to, you could certainly add any more information around it. If you wanted more black around it, put more black around it. If you know any little details that you feel would enhance it, feel free to do so. We'll be able to manipulate it a little bit more when we're finishing the fur on it, but that's about all I'm going to be doing for it right now. We are going to be utilizing the same small brush for the next step. So once you've got these features done, you can wash and dry your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the facial features on our pig. So I'm going to use my small brush. The colors I'm going to be using are black, white, that skin color, and maybe some brown, rust. I think that's it. I'll call them out as I use them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some black paint. We're going to put that eye in place with some black paint, and then we'll go do the nose, and we'll come back to the eye. So I'm going to have my eye right about here. So this is about the same height as the top of my snout. So somewhere in through here is about how high I'm going to put it. It too is going to be an almond type of a shape that's going to kind of lean down like this. So I'm going to have, and it's a little bit more round than the goat eye. So I'm going to have mine in a shape like that. I'm just going to color it in with a thin layer of black paint. So again, so it doesn't take too long to dry. Once I have that on there, I can do just little bits around the eye that'll tell us a little bit more of the story of how the eye sinks in. So I'm going to just take that little remnants of black that I have on my brush and maybe pull this back corner down a little bit in through here. And again, I'm just right now just using the remnants that are on my brush. I might in a second pick up a little bit of black paint or gray paint as well, but right now just kind of utilizing the remnants. So I'm just pulling this out a little bit because I want around my eyes to be a little bit darker. So this is going to help me sell that story. And then I think I am going to pick up some of my gray too, just so I can get these two to blend in a little bit more. And again, I'm just kind of adding this little bit of a dimensional element around the eye. We'll be able to finesse it a little bit more when we put the rest of the fur on, but this just kind of gets us started. And while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and do my nose. So I'm going to wash and dry my small brush. I'm going to pick up some clean black paint, and I'm going to put my nostrils in place. So I'm going to have my nostrils somewhere in this vicinity. If the nose is kind of turned a little bit, I think it would be turned a little bit. I think I'm going to do my right nostril a little bit smaller than my left nostril, which will tell the viewer that it's turned a little bit. So I'm going to be over on this side, and I'm going to have my nostrils almost, you know, kind of peeking out above it. You could have yours whatever way that you'd like to. I'm going to do this one maybe a little bit bigger, so just kind of give myself this curve in through here. Once I've got the curve on there, the inside edge of the curve I'm going to keep clean, and the outside curve I'm going to fade out into the gray. So I'm going to, I dipped my brush in water, and I'm just going to kind of allow this to blend out into that gray a little bit. It doesn't have to go a lot. We're going to be putting the pinkness of the snout on in a second, but this will just kind of get it so it's a little bit easier for you to make it believable, like those nostrils are kind of going into the snout, as opposed to just being a circle or something along that line. So once I have that on there, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and then I'm going to put the colored part on the snout. So I just want to have it lighter at the top and then have some kind of pinky area throughout the rest. So I'm going to start with some white paint, and I'm going to get the tippy top of it to be pretty darn light. I know that my background is pretty light, so in order for it to show up, I'm leaving a little bit of a sliver of that gray along the edges. Now I'm going to pick up my pink color that we used for the cow nose, and I'm just going to start rubbing this in. If you wanted yours to be really pink, you could certainly, if you have red in your paint box, you could certainly pick up some red and make it a little bit more pinker, but I'm going for a nice neutral kind of skin tone for mine. When I get to that nostril, I'm just kind of letting it blend in with that grayish area, and then I'm just going to kind of blend it around. I want mine to have a little bit more richness of my tones, so I can pick up also more of that rust color. So if you want there to be a little bit more of a dimensional element, you can add a little bit more darkness into some of the spots, like maybe down in through here where it's going behind the fence. So it does not have to be all one solid color. An assortment of colors will definitely make it look a little bit more natural. You could even pick up, I'm picking up some brown paint right now. You could put brown in some areas, make them look a little bit dirtier than others. So feel free to explore your color preferences when it comes to your snout, because they really can come in a variety of different colors. I know that the traditional is pink, but it's a pig, so they definitely have some dirt and stuff all over them, so you can certainly have fun with that. Add in a little bit more lightness to get this part to pop out just a little bit more, so you can have fun alternating those colors, getting that snout to look however full and pink that you would like. And then once you've got that done, I'm going to finish up the eye. So my eye, I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel. I'm picking up some burnt sienna, and I'm going to put some of that color in through the eye portion itself. So just a little bit of this in through here. You're not going to see much of his eye because he's got some really long eyelashes, but I'm definitely putting some color in here, leaving a little bit of this black along the edges. So I just picked up a little bit more black to make sure that I have a little bit of this black along the edges, just so it really looks like it's kind of sinking in to his head a little bit in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of a sparkle in the eye. Again, I know that it's going to be hidden with a lot of that, a lot of the eyelashes, but I like them to have a little bit of life. So I just put a little bit of white paint on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of streak in just a little tiny highlight within that rust. And you can fiddle with that. And then I'm going to be using my gray paint to start for my eyelashes. And again, these eyelashes are going to kind of come down in front of the eye, which is why I didn't do much detail on the eye because I know that I'm going to want these ones pretty darn long. So I'm just going to kind of wisp in these longer eyelashes. And if you wanted to, you could certainly utilize a different tone. You could use yellow and white if you wanted to. You could use your gray and white, whatever kind of works for you in order to get these as vibrant as you want. I'm picking up just a little bit of white right now just to give a tiny brighter touch on top of some of these. Just making sure my brush is in control when I do it. And then we are going to be switching to our medium brush for the next step. So you can do any little fiddles that you want and tweaks to finish up these features, and then you can put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish our cowl. I'm gonna use my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, white, and my pink color that I created. So I am going to be doing this from my shadowy areas and building my way to the light. So the shadow areas that I'm going to have are underneath this fence rail, which will be on the cow's head, and then I'll have another shadow underneath here, which will be cast from the cow onto the fence. So I'm going to be using brown plus a teeny tiny bit of black paint on my medium brush, and I do not need a lot of paint, so I can just kind of put it on my brush and then just wipe it off a little bit on my paper towel. And then for the shadow on my fence, the trick is I want to make sure that I can still see the fence underneath my shadow. So if you go about this and it all of a sudden is just black and you can't see the fence underneath it, then you'll want to either water down your paint or use a little bit more translucent paint so you can actually see through it. That'll make it much more believable than it being a black type of a shadow, especially since you're right next to black fur. So up in through here, this one can be a little bit more darker because you've got the lighter fur that you're going to be in front of. So I'm just bringing my black and brown all the way up into this little crevice to make it look like it is emerging from underneath the fence like that. And once I've got that on there, you can put a tiny bit of water on your brush if you want to, and then you just kind of rub it out into what's going to be the lighter fur that we'll put on in a minute. So I'm just kind of giving this so I don't have a firm line, so something like that. And if you think that it's too dark, don't worry about that. We'll adjust it in a minute with our other fur. So then what I'm going to do is I am going to start adding lighter fur on the black fur in through here. So I'm going to use a combination of my black, gray, and my pink in order to do so. I know that I want this nostril to emerge and kind of work its way into the fur. So what I did is I just put a little bit of black paint on my brush to make sure that I have these clean edges within the nostril. Then I'm going to pick up some of my pink color without washing my brush, and I'll get these two to blend in. So what this is going to do is it's going to make it look like the skin part of the inside of the nostril is just starting to emerge into that black fur area. And at any time you feel that you've got too much on your brush, just pick up maybe a little bit of the black, and that'll help you to get it to blend in a little bit. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through this side of the face. I know that I want a little bit of the impression of some contours on the face. So how I'm going to do that is with my pink, gray, and black on my brush at the same time. I don't need a lot, but being able to control what you're doing helps out a little bit. And knowing that this is fur that can have different colors in it really helps to allow the freedom to kind of make it into whatever you want. If you want yours to be lighter or darker, then just go for it. You don't have to have yours exactly the same tone as mine. The fur on a cow is very short, so you don't need to have really long brush strokes. I know that probably have a little bit of lightness over here on the jaw. So again, a little bit of my pink, my gray, and my black is going to help me put just a little bit of this contour in through here that's going to allow that part of the face to look like it's popping out a little bit. And again, I don't really need much, just something that gives that shape to the face. And if I have anywhere else, like I feel like this needs to be painted a little bit more, I just picked up a little bit more black. And this is the time where you finesse any little details throughout this black area. If you felt that you needed to add anything else, you can certainly take the time now to do so. So if you felt you wanted anything above here, feel free to do so. And then I'm going to move on to this lighter area of the face. So this is, I haven't washed my brush. I still have those 3 colors on my brush. For the nose, I just want this area in here to be the lightest and just go right up into the white fur up above. So I just picked up white paint with my dirty brush, and I'm going to be using this really kind of carefree, kind of down type of brush stroke. It's kind of going down towards that nose a little bit, up in through this area of a cow. Sometimes they have like a little hair that goes in different directions. So if you wanted to have fun and just kind of put that hair going in different directions, you certainly could. That makes it look like it's got a little bit more character to it. But as I'm going through this process, I know that my white is going to take on some of that gray that is underneath. But if you feel like you're doing it a little bit too light, you can always add back some of that gray to your brush, and that'll help to give you a gradual type of transition. As I go towards the nose part, I am still utilizing white paint on my brush, but I'll probably use a little bit more in a minute. Right now, just kind of getting it on here. I might do a second layer, which will help me to make it look like it blends in with that nose a little bit more. You can leave a little bit of darkness where the fur kind of meets that skin area. So if you want to, you can just kind of leave a little sliver of darkness in through here. Not necessary, but if you want it to maybe have a little bit more of a natural look to it, you can certainly do that. And or you can add, I'm picking up a little bit of brown and my rust color. You can add a little bit of a contour right at the top of that pinky area, and that'll help to make that look like it kind of maybe dips in a little bit more. It has a little bit more shape to it. And then you just kind of keep building this as much as you want to. So I'm going to keep picking up a little bit of this white in order to make this nice and bright on the top of the nose, making sure I bring it all the way to the edge of where my chalk marks were, and then I just kind of keep building these layers until I feel like I've got enough on here. And then once I've got that, and of course I make sure that this kind of all works together where the light fur is meeting the dark fur, and just adding these little brush strokes to give it any identity. If I feel like I want this a little lighter in through here, so in goes my brush onto the nose. So you can certainly keep fiddling with it as much as you want to. And then once you've got your cute little cow all nice and done, we're going to use this same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our goat. I'm going to use my medium brush, and I'm going to use the same process that I did for the cow. So I'm going to go for my shadowy areas, and then I'll just build my way to the light fur. So I'm going to be having some shadow on the fence underneath the head and through here. I'll have it on the head underneath the fence. And then I'm going to need a little bit of contour shadows underneath the jaw of the goat. So I've got my medium brush. I'm going for my brown with a tiny bit of black paint, which is going to give me my shadow on the fence underneath the head in through here. And again, if yours is turning out just black, then you'll want to add either a little bit more brown or a little bit of water onto your brush. So something like this, so we can see the fence underneath it. And I'm bringing this right underneath this jaw. You could, I think I'm going to bring it down a little bit further in through here, because I'm thinking that this shadow is going to be from the whole head in through here. So we'll just add a little bit more kind of coming down the fence in through here, which is going to show us the shadow from this cute little beard too. And just Sometimes my head goes, if I've got something past an object like this, I'll keep going on my shadow. So just don't put any shadow in your sky. You want to make sure that the shadow only goes to the bottom of the piece of fence. This way it'll look a whole lot more natural as opposed to having shadow floating in your sky, which might not really happen. So once I've got that, I'm going to go to the top of the head as well. So I still just have this black and brown on my brush, and the animal itself is going to have a curved head. So I'm going to curve my shadow kind of in a direction that will take on the shape of the head, something like this. And again, water will help you to get those areas to blend in a little bit, but don't feel that you have to blend them in perfectly, because we're going to be putting a lot of fur on in a minute. So something like that will work for me. And then I'm going to have, maybe I didn't wash my brush and I didn't even do anything. I'm just using the remnants from up there to add a little bit of a contour shadow at the bottom side of the face in through here. So this is going to give me a little bit of darkness down at the bottom of the face in through here, which will help to show that the top side of the face is being illuminated and the bottom side has a little bit of shadow from either the shape of the face or from the surrounding areas. So something like that works. I'm going to put a little bit more brown on my brush so I can make sure that I have this darkness in between the eyes, maybe a touch of black as well. So I really want to sell the story of these eyes being sunken in here. So just making sure I have all of my shadow as much as I want it and wherever I want it to be, to make sure that I have all these deep areas. I think I want a little bit around the nose in through here, just a little bit of shadow around that nose, and you can certainly rub it in like I do with my finger. If you want a little bit in through here, feel free to do so. This just kind of, again, makes it look really nice and natural underneath the brighter fur that we'll put in a minute, and maybe a couple of these darker streaks down in through this beard in through here. So now I'm going to start working my way towards the light stuff after I put a little bit behind this nose and through here. So I'll start working my way towards the light stuff. So I'm just going to have kind of like a creamy colored goat, maybe with a little bit of this rust color in his fur. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself like a creamy tan type of color. So I have my tan from my wood. I'm going to add some yellow and some white to it. So what I'm really doing is just making myself this light beige type of color. This will be the main color for my fur, for my goat fur, but I will add some extra highlights with white and some extra information with my rust as well. But this is what's going to get me started. And I don't need a lot of paint on my brush, so I mixed my color. Now I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel, and this is where I'm going to get the majority of these of the color of the fur to happen. So longer fur is going to get longer brush strokes. Shorter fur, like around this chin, is going to get little dots. And I am conscious that I don't want to color in the whole thing, which is why I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. So because I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, it will take on the colors that are underneath it as well, which is going to add to the dimensional element of the fur. So that's how I create it in order to give it that dimensional type of element. So I have my shorter fur going on in through here. You could even, if you have a very minimal amount of paint on your brush, you could rub it as well. But if you're in the areas where you have longer fur, you want to make sure that you have that longer fur brush stroke, like down in that bearded type of area. And then I will be putting a little bit longer fur on the top of the head as well. But right now, just kind of getting this main coat on in through here so we can start to build to the lightness. Up on this top of the head, I'm going to utilize a little bit more of a directional brush stroke. This is where it'll make it look a little bit longer. And you can add a little bit more paint if you feel like I was just kind of running out of paint totally. So I just added a little bit more paint to my brush. When I do the brighter tones with white. That'll help make this look like it's got even more direction to it and have more length to it. So I'm going to have a little bit longer fur on the top of the head, and then I'll have it a little bit shorter as it comes around towards those eyes. So just a little bit in through here, and then I'll go back to my dotting as I'm around those eyes. And again, once I do that second layer with the with a little bit lighter of color, you'll be able to see these the direction of the fur a little bit more. So again, just dotting where I want it shorter and stroking it where I want it longer. So just giving this little element over in through here on top of my rust color, so you can see how having that additional color underneath will help to give you that more dimensional element. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to pick up a little bit of rust paint on my dirty brush, so I can give actually rust and brown is what I'm going to do. Rust and brown on my dirty brush, so I can give myself a little bit of darker fur down in through here. So rust and brown is what I have on my brush right now, and this is going to be kind of the bottom side of the face in through here, and then I'm going to put a little bit of this in the beard as well, maybe a little bit around the nose, and just adding again these different tones throughout the fur is going to make it have so much more dimension to it than if you were just to do one solid color throughout the whole thing. So I'm going to bring some of this rust and brown on my brush. I'm going to bring some of this down into the beard. This will also make it look like the beard has a little bit more shaded area on the back side of it, as it's looking kind of, you know, out of this cute little fence. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start picking up some white paint. I might use my cream color again too, but right now I'm going to start with just white paint, see if this does the job for me, and if not, I'll add a little bit more of the cream color. So just a little bit of the white paint. I don't really want to overdo it. I am going to pick up some of that cream color now that I'm seeing how it's reacting on the canvas. So I have white plus the cream color on my brush. And on this beard part, I am preserving some of the underneath color, just again, so it allows it to show that dimensional element. So I'm not going too overboard, and maybe a couple of these pieces cross over into the chin area. And then I'm just going to start dotting with my light cream color, my light tan, plus a little bit of white. Give myself these cute little fluffy pieces around the bottom of the chin. We'll go for some of these fluffy pieces around the mouth too. And you can see now that I'm adding this last kind of pass with the lightest color, it really takes on a fun filled area and gives it a lot of dimension. But the trick is just to not overdo it. You know, you go through this process and you build these layers so you can have this dimension to it. But when we get to this final pass, it's like we just want to put the white everywhere. So you just really want to be cautious about how much you put and where you put it, because if you overdo it, then you've lost the dimension everywhere else. So I'm just going to kind of add a bunch on this nose so it looks like it's being illuminated by whatever the light is coming from the other area, and I'm bringing it under here. I might end up putting a little bit more of the rust and the brown underneath this little area here in a second, just so I can make sure that that remains like it's in the shadows, and just bringing some of this fur around the nose, bringing it in this direction. I feel like it would kind of come down this side in through here, down the side of the face like this. So when I do animals, I'm constantly thinking of what direction that fur is going in. So I feel it would be going kind of straight back on the head, and then down in through here. This would just be kind of shorter fur, so I'm going to just kind of dab it in through here, and then I'll do a little bit more on the back side of that eye as well, and then I'll put some at the top too, just so we can maintain having this nice fluffy look to it, and that it's got, you know, a nice firm jaw into here, and it's got lots of fun elements to it. So I'm going to pick up that tan color plus maybe a little bit of my burnt sienna, just so I can get a little bit more of this fur kind of coming up along the back side of this eye in through here. And again, you can really, there's hairy goats, there's short, you know, there's long haired, there's short haired. So you can really have fun with how long or how short you want your hair to be on your goat. You know, you can have all different colors too. There's black goats and white goats and brown goats, and you know, so you can certainly just have fun with making this goat into whatever you imagine it to be. And then you just kind of keep adding these colors and making it as fun as you want. And once you've got it in as much hair on it as you want, you can, we're going to utilize this same brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our pig. I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm going to be using are black, white, gray, and my pink type of color, and some brown too. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to approach it the same way that I approach the other animals, which is I'm going to add my shadows first, and then I'm going to work my way towards the lighter fur. So I'm going to have shadows underneath the fence rail on the head. I'm also, because this animal is all the way on the other side of the fence rail, I'm only going to have a shadow on the top side of this rail in through here. And then I'll just have shadows maybe behind the snout and other strategic areas. So I'm going to put some brown and a touch of black on my brush at the same time to start with my shadow underneath the rail on the head. So something like this. And I can bring this one down that face a little bit, because I feel like we probably have a little bit of a shadow coming down here. Sometimes the more dramatic you make your shadows, the more believable it becomes. So don't fear making dark shadows. You can always, you know, add lightness back on top of them. But, you know, if they're not dark enough, sometimes you end up losing the information or the idea of them altogether. I'm going to add a little bit of this shadow on the on this top rail, so just a little bit of this black and brown on my brush. And I think I need a little bit more black again so you can see it. So I just added a touch more black onto my brush to make sure that it translates as a shadow. So just bringing it all the way up to that snout, making sure that you can see it, because there's no sense in putting it there if you can't see it. And then I'm going to put a little bit of this behind the snout, and I'm going to make this like a wrinkly kind of snout. So I'm just going to utilize this shadow as not only shadow but also wrinkles within the skin. So I'm going to put it a little bit darker down at the bottom of the skin of the snout, and then just kind of going to pull up these bits of like little wrinkles of sorts. And this is where I'm going to close off that gap between my the front snout part and the bridge of the nose. So something like this, just make sure I don't have any unpainted areas in through there. And then just making sure I have as much darkness wherever I want. I think I'm going to want some more darkness around this eye. So again, I just have the black and brown on my brush, but I think I'm going to pick up a little bit of gray as well. So black, brown, and gray, so I can get myself a real nice, believable, dark area of fur along the back side of this eye. And I'm not quite sure what kind of pig this is, but it did appear to have a little bit longer type of fur. Pigs can really have different lengths of fur, so some of them have no fur and they're just little pink and just all skin. So you could certainly get away with making yours in that way, but if you want yours to have a little bit of fur, this is how I'm approaching mine. I'm going to put just a little bit of this darkness. Again, I have gray, black, and brown on my brush. I'm going to put a little bit coming down in through here just so it looks like there's a contour shape to the face like this. And then I'm going to just wipe my, actually let me put a little bit more in through here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to start adding my lighter fur So my lighter fur is going to be gray, white, and pink. So I'm going to start with gray and white on my brush just to kind of get my direction of where I want this fur to go. So if this is the bridge of the nose, I'm going to have it kind of coming back towards the eye, and then it kind of curves down around the snout in through here, and then above the eyes, or above the bridge of the nose, this is where I'm going to have it kind of curving back up the head. So if you want to provide the viewer with information as to the shape of the animal, the direction of the hair really tells the story well. So if you can kind of get some of those directional brush strokes in place, that's going to help the viewer understand the shape of that particular body part. So I'm just kind of adding this little bit of gray and white. Now I'm going to go in for some of my pink tone just to give myself a little bit of extra, information that it in fact is the pig, and maybe we're seeing a bit of skin underneath, or maybe this fur is taking on a little bit of a pink kind of tinge to it. That's going to be totally up to you how you want to translate that. And then I'll pick up a little bit of white. Oh, he's looking cute. I like doing little animals like this. I'm going to pick up some white now to give myself the final kind of texture of the fur. I think I want a lot kind of around these eyes, maybe some on the bridge of the nose, and then of course some going up in through here. And these pigs could also have some stray pieces just kind of coming out the side if you wanted them to, but this is going to be up to you how furry or not furry you want your pig to look. If you want to add, I think I might add a little bit more darkness up in through here, but right now just kind of getting a little bit more texture in the fur around the eyes. I think I'd have a little bit maybe shorter fur coming in through here, so just using more of that dotting technique as opposed to the long brush kind of brush stroke. Maybe the longer fur is kind of in through here, and then just making sure that I've covered everywhere as much as I want to with as much fur as I want, layering it. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. It's hard because when I sit this close, it's like, oh, he's cute. But then when you put your head back, it's like, whoa, he is cute. He's got some good stuff to him. So I'm actually putting a little bit more black and brown on my brush right now. I just want to get this a little bit more shadowed in through here, like maybe it's catching a little bit more of the shadow from the railing itself. I think it's just going to give it a little bit more of a dimensional element. So these are the little tweaks that I make as I'm kind of finishing up, saying, is it translating as much as I want it to? That he's got the curve, he's got some fluffy fur, and if I find that there's areas that I want to adjust, I do that. I'm actually going to pick up a little bit of rust right now and put a little bit of this rust color in the nose as well, something like this. And then I would just kind of keep fiddling with it until I felt that I had everything on here that I wanted. If I wanted some extra long fur around the eyes, I can just kind of pick up a little bit of white and just add that in through there. If I wanted, more fur around the eyes up and through here, I can pick up a little bit more black and brown and put a little bit more of that dimensional kind of element, add a little bit more contrast. All these little adjustments help to make it look more deep and have more information in it. So I can add a little eyelid by just pulling up a little dark area in through here, and then I would just kind of keep fiddling with it, see if there's any other adjustments that I want to make. And then we have one little step left to go, and it's going to be with our small brush. So once you've got all of your information on your cute little pig that you want, you can put this medium brush away. He's cute. Put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I think I'm going to go bottom right on this one. I'm using my small brush and black paint. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you would like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself some really cute barnyard buddies, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.